I am Julia Álvarez, daughter of Julia Tavares de Álvarez, and very proud to bear her name and to have had her as a model of compassionate and dedicated service to her family, her country, and to the world through her work in the United Nations, advocating for the most vulnerable, especially the elderly and victims of violence. On behalf of my entire family, I would like to thank you for honoring my mother by instituting this award in her name. In this way, her legacy can serve as an inspiration and model to others. Who was Doña Julia to me? First and foremost, she was my mother, Mami, devoted to her family, setting high standards for her daughters, always curious and eager to learn and master new skills. She never gave up on a task that needed to be done, and she was never satisfied to do a mediocre job. She was the first one to roll up her sleeves and do what needed to be done. As a young mother, when my father was just getting started in his practice, she decided to do her part and save money by sewing all our clothes. Did she know how to sew? No, but she taught herself how to do it. When forced into exile in the United States, fleeing the dictatorship of Trujillo and start her life over with 4 young daughters and a husband who had to begin anew as a professional, Mommy went to work at his office, getting up at 5 in the morning with him to drive to Brooklyn and be his office manager, receptionist, accountant, and nurse, even though she had never had any training in these areas. Papi's patients at Álvarez Medical Center so loved her, she was known as the other Dr. Álvarez in the office. I remember her staying up late to type my papers, listen to my first poems. Did I mention she was the best storyteller? I think the seeds of my love of storytelling and my wanting to be a writer were planted by Mommy. She had a wonderful sense of humor, and she was a master storyteller. Why do I think she is a role model for Dominicans? Many women of my mother's generation devoted themselves to their families, their church, their community, many whose names we don't even know. And my mother would be the first to advocate for all those nameless, anonymous women who devote themselves to improving the lives of others. But what I think was exemplary about my mother was how, after her daughters left home and Papi's practice had become established and successful, she decided to serve her larger community. Rather than sit back and enjoy a privileged life, she looked around for another challenge. She began volunteering at the United Nations, and soon she was well known in those halls of power as the ambassador for the aging. It was her initiative which resulted in the United Nations passing a declaration on the international rights of elders and in instituting October 1st as an international day for elders, recognizing our viejitos throughout the world. She also spearheaded the proposal to establish November 25th, the day the Mirabal sisters were murdered by Trujillo's henchmen, as International Day for the Elimination of Violence Against Women. That day, observed around the world, has made our beloved mariposas international symbols for human rights. All these successes were not accomplished overnight. Together with my father, Dr. Eduardo Álvarez, her devoted co-worker and companion, Mommy worked tirelessly, attending meetings, organizing panels, writing speeches. She had a vision, and just as she had learned to sew clothes for her daughters, she learned how to be an advocate, an activist, and a model of how one single older woman with persistence, a big heart, and a visionary imagination can make the world a little better for those least able to advocate for themselves. As for a special memory of Mommy, I could mention her book of speeches, because of course, with a writer for a daughter, Mommy had to write her own book, Speeches for the Ages. I could mention the special recognition of her work by the UN in 2007 when they held a day in celebration in her honor, a celebration which I attended in her name, as already Mommy was ill and confined to her house in Santiago. I could mention the Medal of Duarte awarded to her by the Dominican government. But the memory I treasure happened one day when I was visiting her in New York. Mommy was getting ready to go to work at the Dominican mission in the UN. As she was closing her briefcase, packed with reports and speeches and folders, I noticed a spray bottle of cleaning fluid and a roll of paper towels. I said, Mommy, why are you taking these supplies to the mission? And so she explained. The window cleaning service was too expensive. We are a poor country, she said, and why should we spend all that money to clean windows when I can do them myself? That to me speaks volumes about who Mommy was. She was never too good or too important for a job that needed to be done. May we all feel inspired by her example of loving, humble service to devote our own skills where they are most needed, whether it be with forgotten elders, victims of brutality, or with dirty windows.